Alysia Gonzales is a candidate in her second year for an MFA in fiction at San Francisco State University. She attends part-time while working full-time in online abuse as a quality analyst for content review. She was born and raised in San Francisco, where she still lives. Her writing revolves around her family, POCs, classism, and sometimes magic. When she's not writing, reading, or working, you can find her over-analyzing movies or hiking. Everyone, Alysia.
No, it's okay. I know I'm short. This is good. What's up? How's everybody doing? You're right to laugh at my work in online abuse. It's hilarious. Every day. So I'll be reading the literal, actual beginning of the novel that I've been working on for the last year and a half. Oh, thanks. Glad that got a clap. Maybe I don't even need to finish it.
Is a novel ever really finished?
Never. And then you die. So yeah, I haven't really done a lot of going back and looking at it and editing. I did a little bit before today, but this is pretty raw, so if you have thoughts, you can find me afterwards as well. And also thank you for inviting me to read. Of course. So yeah, I'll just be reading the beginning. No context needed. I couldn't be sure Manny and Elijah hadn't read the paper on the front door, but they hadn't come running down the stairs when they heard the front door slam. They must have been doing homework upstairs, and I should start dinner. Same as always. Same as always. Spam, eggs, and rice. Breakfast for dinner always made the boys happy, and me too, since it was easier than most other things I could cook. It'd be easy to clean, I could help them with homework while the rice boiled. It could be relaxing. Could be. And I could find the words to tell them. Technical difficulties, this whole thing just changed. Find them. Like they're already out there somewhere, lying on the ground, ready for me, ready for my boys. I put the rice on the stove to boil, but I hadn't found the words yet. I didn't know if I had it in me to even find them. My hands wandered. Scabs that I'd refused to let heal decorated the crooks of my elbows. My nails found the edge of one, began to peel, began to pull away from the skin. Pick, pick, pick underneath, wedge it up from the flesh. Don't feel it at all until, peel a little bit more and you feel it. Keep pulling, and eventually it lifts up from the skin. Your fingers pull free away from the self-made band-aid that is a scab, and you feel free, liberated. You are healed. Your wounds are no longer there. For a moment, until your body realizes what you've done and bleeds to make the exact same thing you've taken away. I apply pressure with a paper towel. The rice is finally beginning to boil, and I can see the starchy water boil out of the pot. I needed something else to occupy my hands. I grabbed an apron and tied it around my waist. It was dirty. Stains from sauces and soups and stews too old to remember scattered the cloth. I opened the cupboard. Not much in the way of food to prepare. Hadn't I picked something easy to cook on purpose? Towards the bottom, I saw latex gloves, so I put those on too. I looked around and saw a spot on the countertop and the floor here and there. I saw cup stains, crumbs from the dinners of weeks ago, but that wasn't really the point, and I knew that. I would have went on and scrubbed that kitchen anyway, even if it had been spotless. I grabbed the Clorox from underneath the sink and splashed it around, covering the kitchen floor. My black socks would be spotted white by the time I was done. I went to scrubbing. Sweat pooled on my neck and cheeks and above my lip, and I kept on. Soon, I could feel my back begin to ache, resisting the strain from my movement, my arms moving in and out, doing their work. The scrapping of the hard brush against the kitchen floor sounded like all the things I'd heard today. Hard, abrasive, somehow expected. I kept on scrubbing while the rice sat on the stove. I could hear it boiling and bubbling already, the steam rising through the small hole in the lid. It was winter and the air was cold. My knees were numb and yet stinging against the kitchen floor at the same time. The wind crawled in through the crack in the window above the sink, sending the baby hairs that lined the crown of my head awhirl. They tickled, like so many unseen spider webs walked through in the early hours of the morning. I brushed them out of my face to continue my work, but they followed me. I brushed them out of my way again and again, itched my temples and cheeks and jawline, but they tickled, bothered, smothered. One in particular kept grazing my eye, and in annoyance I ripped it out. Then another, and another. It took a while to find each invisible piece, but when I found it, I pulled as hard as I could and let them drop to the floor one by one. Eventually, I got up and threw my head over the sink basin and betrayed by their longer cousins who were neatly tied behind my head in a bun, I plucked out every last one. Each one singularly invisible, but the pile ever growing, the hair standing out against the white porcelain of the sink, thick, dark, and dead. I don't know how much time went by, but I stopped when the rice on the stove dripped and hissed and the starchy water was burned by the hot burner. I looked over, saw the water leaking through the crease in the lid, and turned the burner to low. The drips had dried crusty and had spilled to the porcelain countertop, old salmon pink tile from the 50s. I would have to get that out, or else the crust would dry up more, stain the top, and we'd get it taken out of our deposit, and we couldn't handle it right now. I put the lid back on and turned to grab the rubber gloves I'd used on the floor. The area underneath the stovetop grill would still be hot, but I could do it quickly. My hands were used to this. I know I could do it. I wouldn't get burned too bad. I was in the middle of soaking a towel and bringing it over the sink when a voice called from the hallway door into the kitchen. "Mama?" Elijah stood in the doorway, Spider-Man pajamas with the brown stain from tripping on the dirt patch outside on his way to get mail that one day. Elijah stood there and he watched me, waiting for me to tell him what to do. That was the big question. "Yeah, baby, what's wrong?" I wiped the sweat off my face and put the wetted paper towel in the sink. "What do you need, child?" He stared at me, finger picking at the side of his mouth, staring at the floor like he always did when he didn't know what to say. "You hungry, baby?" "Yeah, I'm hungry," he said. He started tapping his nails against each other. Tap, tap, tap. That boy would never stop tapping, no matter how many times I'd try to get him to stop. But this time I let him keep going. Didn't want to stop anybody from anything tonight. Everything was hard enough as it is. "Dinner will be ready soon, Elijah." "What are we going to eat?" "Breakfast, baby. Spam, eggs, and rice for us tonight." And his face lit up, and he ran off, his feet pitter-pattering on the floor, hardly creaking at his tiny body, and for a second, I felt exactly how I wanted to feel. "Manny, dinner's ready," I yelled up the stairs to his room. I could hear his feet clopping down the small flight of stairs. Manny was at the point where his limbs were too big for his body, and his feet jutted out awkwardly from his legs as if they hadn't grown enough yet. His hair was a mess, an indent left where his headphones had been, and he was silent. Usually I'd make him say something. "Hello, Mama," or talk about his day at school, or something, just to get him out of that head of his. But not today. Today I let him be. "All right, let's pray." It was easy to reach everybody's hands around the small circular table in the corner of the kitchen. Elijah had his head so far bowed that the tip of his hair was touching his plate of food. Manny had his head down just barely enough to avoid a smacking in my house. Manny's hands held loosely against mine, but I could tell that he was holding on to his brother's real tight. The clink and clatter of silverware on plates made things seem too normal. The mound of breakfast in my bowl made me nauseous, but my two sons were already almost done with their food. Manny was scooping more rice into his brother's bowl before his own. Question about more scrambled eggs and do we have milk echoed in my head, and I answered them on autopilot. Every question seemed so normal, so painfully, blissfully normal. I felt big and small at the same time. I felt like the walls were pushing in around me. My head felt loud in the silence of dinner. It all felt so loud. "Everything okay, Mom?" I looked up at Manny before I could catch myself. I could feel the way I looked, eyes buggy and wide, hair a mess and disheveled, my eye sockets plow and sunken, my cheeks taut from stress. I looked down and realized I still had my apron on. Yeah, I said. Everything's fine, baby. Well, you don't look fine, Manny said, taking a bite of rice. Excuse me? I said you don't look fine. Look at you. You're a mess. You look stressed. What's wrong? I said everything's fine, baby. What, your mama gotta look perfect 24/7? What'd that paper say, Ma? I felt flat. I felt so flattened and heavy and sunken that I couldn't even open my mouth. The house was silent. Even Elijah sat there, staring at his brother and me, not touching a single part of his plate. Nothing, baby. Nothing at all. Just something to do with the house. Are we good? I looked at my son. Of course we're good, child. You're always good with me. After a few moments went by, Manny said, Ma, I read it. I looked at him. Did your brother read it? No. Did you read the whole thing? I said. Yeah. Well, then you also saw that if we have any questions or think this may have been posted in error, we can file complaints down at city. But Ma, what if? Don't interrupt me, child. Ma, I said don't. That's that. I'm gonna take care of it, and we'll be good. We'll be good. I picked up my spoon and started eating my dinner. All of a sudden, I was hungry, starving like I hadn't eaten in days. I could feel the chasm of my stomach open up with every bite I took. I was shoveling food as fast as I could. Manny and Elijah were done, but I was just getting started. Manny dropped his spoon loudly on his plate. This is bullshit. Excuse me? What did you just... I said, this is bullshit. Child, you go to your room right now. I didn't yell. I didn't have to. Manny kicked his chair back and went upstairs, slamming the door. I yelled something at him, I can't remember. In his wake, the silence between me and Elijah felt awkward. I looked at him and looked away, embarrassed, feeling like I should have somehow been able to handle this, to prevent it all from bubbling over. Quietly, I said, you can go to your room too. And he scurried away without saying anything, tap, tap, tapping on his nails as he went, too, upstairs, and closed his door, conspicuously quietly, leaving me to bear the silence alone.